Hey guys, it's Layla. Welcome back to the channel. And today I'm finally doing my plant video. I'm doing the Q&A from my Instagram. Actually, what I've decided to do is I went through all the questions that I got and I picked some. So there were quite a few people that were asking about similar things, and I didn't feel like there was any point me going through the individual questions. So yes, as most of you know, I am a self-proclaimed plant bae, plant mother, okay, mother, and I absolutely love my plant babies. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you've seen that I've been keeping plants for an extremely long time. I started keeping plants in my bedroom, I want to say maybe 5-6 years ago. And yeah, this is my collection now. I would have already kind of given you guys a tour of the majority of the plants in my room. Hopefully I got all of them. I can't remember. There's plants literally in every corner. My last plant video I gave you an update, and I think I'd just gotten Frank, and Frank is my fiddle leaf fig. I'm going to bring Frank over so you can see him, for those of you who don't remember him, or if you didn't see him. So this is Frank, and like I said, Frank is a fiddle leaf fig. I got Frank last year, so yeah, he's still pretty new, but when I first got him, he was like this big, like this point here, and since then he's grown this much. I think I had also just gotten my string of pearls, and I'd also gotten my string of hearts, and I'd also gotten my Hoya Conosa compactor. When I got my Hoya, it was literally a baby. My Hoya was, I don't know, maybe like, I would say 5 centimeters altogether, like 5 centimeters, 5 inches. So about 3 inches. Oh God, don't worry y'all, it's not Corona. It was about 3 inches on like one stem branch and like 2 inches on another, but she's grown so much since then, and I'm going to show you guys her as well. This is what my Hoya is looking like. So this is a Hoya Conosa compacti, and literally when I got it, it was like there. And this one was barely like hanging out of the pot. So it's doing really good, and I can tell that it's ready to be watered. And I'll show you what I usually do. I wait until the leaves look like wrinkly and soft. They should be firm, like how these are, if it's gonna focus. So you can see these leaves are like really firm, but usually I wait until the kind of top leaves here, not just the bottom but the top leaves, start to get wrinkly. Then I know it's a good time to give her like a good watering. I haven't suffered any bug infestations with her. In fact, I've been really blessed in the 5 years that I've had my plants. I don't think I've had any bugs infestation. There was one plant that did have a spider mite problem, and I bought it that way without realizing. So I got rid of that one time. And more recently, this year, I got a calethea orbifolia, which is this one right here. If you follow me on Instagram, you know these plants already, you've seen them. But this is Olivia, and Olivia looks like this. Very pretty. Olivia's doing very well. And I thought I'd give you guys some tips on my calethea and what I've been doing and why she hasn't started to die yet or to really brown. Caletheas are very sensitive to like minerals and different metals in regular water, so in tap water. So most people like to use filtered. I've decided to use deionized water. So for my more fussy kind of tropical plants, I like to use deionized water, which is through for my bird of paradise, but I'll get onto him in a bit. So for Olivia, I do use deionized water, which is like It's really cheap. It's the same as like battery water. I buy mine on Amazon and I get like the big, I think it's like 25 liters gallon because I also use it in my humidifier. I don't use tap water in my humidifier. I use deionized water. Keeps my skin nice and soft, and it also keeps my plant like nice and hydrated. I will show you the humidifier that I have. I've got the Lavoit one. It's just, it's a dream come true. It's on the pricey side, but I do think that it's worth it. Do you know what? My mic is behind me and my chair's broken, so I feel like it's squeaking and it's probably picking it up. So let me just move my mic. I like to drip feed my plants. So if a plant says like water like once a month or something, I like to usually put like a very small amount, maybe a third or a quarter of whatever it says on your feed, like whatever the feed that you use. And I've got mine. I think I've showed you guys it already, but whatever the instructions for your feed is, I will use like maybe a quarter of that, either weekly or every other week. So I have been drip feeding her, and since I've had her, we've had like maybe 4 or 5 new leaves, so she's doing really, really well. It's working for her. Orbifolias really, or caletheas I should say, the caletheas or all the prayer plants, they need high humidity. So when they don't get enough humidity, that's when the edges start to like brown and yellow and fall off. And then also when you're using water that it doesn't like, that also tends to happen. So if you want to keep your leaves as lush and burn mark free as possible, that's what you want to do. I also keep mine, you would have seen in the previous video or the video at the end, that I keep mine by my bed. So I have a north facing window directly on one side of it and a south facing window on the other side, but it's literally in the central point of both windows, and it's also quite far back, so it gets a lot of natural light, but it doesn't get any direct sunlight. It doesn't like that. It will not thrive. So hopefully that's helpful, because I did get some questions on my calethea. Now my bird of paradise that I got, this is Bird. I'll come close. So this is what Bird looks like. I've got Bird in my IKEA pot. I ordered Bird online. I will put the websites to the different places that I like to buy plants at. So this is how big he is at the moment. And since I got him, I have, this is a new leaf. This is a new leaf as well. It's literally just finished unfurling. And as you can see, I have another new leaf right here that's currently unfurling, and we have another one coming in right there. I hope you can see that. I don't really have any special care tips for my bird of paradise. What I will say to you is, I know a lot of us are like currently interested in getting like exotic plants, but do bear in mind that if you do not have the right lighting conditions, your plant will even probably die before you get an opportunity to overwater it. So be careful. For me, I'm lucky enough to have a south facing window which gets loads and loads of direct sunlight. As you know, I don't have curtains or blinds, so there's a constant like influx of light into the room. This bad boy is really enjoying that privilege. So he lives in the windowsill, you would have seen. And similarly to all of my plants that I drip feed my plants. I don't do any of that like once a month thing. I won't remember. So I drip feed all my plants. I don't use my deionized water for him. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I use tap. I'm not fast and he's not fast. So we good. Yeah, like I said, I'll leave the link to where I got my bird from. A few people have asked me, a few people are interested, but I do want to stress to you guys that if you're going to get certain types of plants, any plant whatsoever actually, make sure you check the type of lighting conditions that it likes beforehand. before you bring it into your home, because your environment may not be conducive. If it's not, then stick with a plant that you can have. There's loads of low light plants. My ZZ plant back there is low light. The snake plant is also low light. And that is a great segue into the next point. I got loads of questions about snake plants. I have 2 in my room. This one is the biggest one. I would move it over, but I'd have to move some stuff on my table. Some of you wanted to know why your snake plant is falling. So I'm assuming you mean the individual things. I can't even think straight. You mean the individual parts of the plant are starting to collapse. That is more than likely because your soil is overly dry, to the point where it's kind of cracked apart. So it's kind of become like compact, and then it's cracked due to the dryness of your soil. You're probably scared to water it, number one, and then over time that's happened and it's causing the plant not to stay upright anymore. In cases like that, I would say it's probably time to either change the topsoil or repot your plant. I would repot it. If the soil is that dry, I would definitely repot it at that point. Another point for you to keep in mind is I water my snake plant thoroughly, or my snake plants thoroughly, I would say at least every month to month and a half. I do water mine. It is a plant that doesn't necessarily need a lot of care. However, it still needs water, so it can survive in dry conditions for a long time. It can survive a lot of dryness, but it will thrive and you will have an overall happier plant if it is receiving a bit of water on a regular basis. Now, I can't tell you exactly how much water to use because that depends on how big your snake plant is. If you have a very small snake plant, you have to be very, very careful. It can become waterlogged so easily. Mine, fortunately for me, have gotten quite big now, so I'm good at gauging how much water it needs. And the first thing I do is, once I'm done, I check to see that the water has drained, and then I like to leave it to sit in that water for maybe like 30 minutes. In 30 minutes time, I'll come back, and if there's still quite a lot of water like left out, or whatever water is still left out, I will pour that out into like another plant or down the sink. I never ever ever leave your plant sitting in water. It does not cope very well. Now, if it's winter time or if it's colder, then you probably don't need to do every like month to month and a half, but just kind of gauge your environment. My room's quite dry. However, sometimes the humidity can be quite high in my room at the same time. So I always like to gauge my plants for their individual needs by checking the soil. So please do that. And yeah, like I said, if you repot, then you should be able to get your plant all together again and they won't be breaking apart. Also, if you're repotting and you've got quite a large one with loads of shoots, then it would be a good time if you also wanted to kind of break it apart and make loads of different smaller plants, or if you want to keep it together, then you can do so. Okay, the next plant that I get loads of questions about is my Monstera deliciosa, and I have a really big one right here. This is Nabija, and I've had Nabija for about 5 years. I want to say 5 or maybe over 5 years at that. Yeah, like just over 5 years maybe. And when I bought Nabija, she was quite small. She was about the size of Sahar, maybe just slightly bigger. So this is Sahar, and Sahar was actually propagated from Nabija like 2 years ago maybe. No, maybe a year ago, I can't remember. But it was literally like two leaves. And since then it's kind of continued to grow. I want to say maybe just over a year or something ago was when I did that. So a lot of people keep asking, how did I get Nabija so big? Time. I've had her for a very long time, and I've been able to propagate her a few times, and there's still plenty of her to go, as you can see. Another thing that I like to do is that I like to tie up my Monstera. You see some people, they'll have theirs and it'll be quite wide, open, I like mine to kind of be nice and structured, so I do tie it up to encourage it to grow upwards. In its natural habitat, in its environment, it is a natural climber, so it does like to climb. It's inclined to go upwards, but it can also grow this way as much as it can grow that way. So if you are doing city jungle life plants in your home, you probably don't have like a whole huge amount of space. So you want to encourage your monsteras from a very young age to grow upwards. As nice as they look when they're quite small, going this way, as they become bigger, hence the name Monstera, it literally is like it's a beautiful monster basically. It can get very, very big, very, very wide. But yeah, mine is very tamed. She's such a good girl. So yeah, I think that's it for new plants and big plant questions. So one of the questions I got was plants that are great for first time plant mums and dads. I would always suggest you go for something that is low maintenance and low light, because most people's homes don't have a large amount of light, and it's also something that a lot of people don't initially kind of take into account when they are going out to buy plants. So just to get your foot in, I would recommend things like ZZ plants. Very, very, very low maintenance, very beautiful. They look so gorgeous. The foliage is nice and shiny. It almost looks like it's plastic. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And it will survive in any corner of your home. It just looks fantastic, and it grows beautifully as well. The next plant I would definitely recommend are a dragon plant. I forgot the Latin name for dragon plants, but they are very low maintenance as well. They don't require a lot of water, and they're also low light. Okay, the next one I would recommend obviously is a snake plant. I mean, it's very hard to kill a snake plant. The only way you can kill a snake plant is by overwatering, which you can do very easily. But because they don't require a lot of water, it's not something that you would be doing on a consistent basis. I would say those are my top three. And then like cacti, you know, cacti are great. They're not going to die on you. Miss Whitney Q. Hi Whitney. So my friend Whitney wants to know how I got into plants. I've always been into plants because there's always been plants in my home. Growing up in Ghana, there was plants in the home. My mom is a huge plant lover, so we had like a whole kind of plant conservatory, a conservatory that was full of plants inside the home. Then we had loads of plants outside the home. And then just growing up, even when we came to the UK, every home I've ever lived in, we've always kept plants. I personally started keeping plants in my personal space about like 5-6 years ago. 5 years ago. I think it's more 6 years, but so yeah. Okay, yeah, so this question I'd answered for someone else already on Instagram, but it's been asked here as well, so I'm gonna address it. So somebody wanted to know if I have had to repot my fiddle leaf fig. When I received my fiddle leaf fig, because they are so temperamental, they can be such a handful. I have been blessed enough that Frank has just been a star, like such a good plant. I literally have lost one leaf from Frank, and that was like the very bottom leaf, and it was already a little bit yellowish when I got him, but that's it. Like, Frank has been so good. However, fiddle leaf figs are known to be very temperamental, so when I first got him I was extremely nervous, and I wanted him to acclimatize to my bedroom, the surroundings, the new surroundings it was in, before I repotted it. When I realized that it was doing so well and it was kind of having loads of new shoots come up, it seemed to be thriving and very happy in its nursery pot, I left him in the nursery pot. I have not repotted him. So it's this year sometime, it's gonna, once it hits 1 year, I'm gonna reassess how the roots are doing, how the root system is, and if I don't feel like it needs to be repotted, I probably won't, and I will hold out until the following year. So I will give it 2 years in this particular nursery pot before I repot it based on how it's doing by the time it hits 1 year in my house. That makes sense? So yeah, a lot of plants, sometimes the best thing to do is as soon as you bring them home, you repot them. Not all plants are like that. Some of them need time to get over like the shock of moving, the shock of being transported, and then the shock of being in your bedroom in an environment that it's not used to. So some of them I like to wait to just see how they're doing, and then others I'll repot straight away just to reduce like the time spent in trauma. So to give you an example, my bird of paradise, Bird has not been moved out of his nursery pot. I can tell he's happy. I'm going to leave him there for a while. Until I see discomfort, I'll leave him there. So you just have to kind of have an eye and really listen to the plants and see the condition that they're in when they arrive in your home. I bought a Hoya compactor, variegata. I'm going to show you. So this is a variegated form of the Hoya that I showed you earlier. When I bought this plant, it was like a whole big plant, a huge plant. But actually, by the time it arrived, it was completely waterlogged. So most of it was dead. Most of the roots was dead. I tried to save it. There were like 2 pots like this worth. There was Canon, and I can't remember what that one was called, but only Canon survived, and this is literally it. It's been months and months, and it's only now started to show like progress. I don't know if you can see that pinky one. That's a very brand new leaf that's coming, and then I've got some right there, some very new growth coming in. But it's taken so long for this plant to recover from the trauma that it went through coming to me. One thing that I wanted to say, because I got quite a bit of questions on my routine with my plants. Everybody's on a completely different routine. I water everybody weekly. No. So everybody doesn't get watered weekly because everybody's on a different watering schedule. The majority of the plants will get watered on the same day because they usually kind of, by the time the week comes around, the topsoil, like the top 2 inches, have almost dried out. So then I'll water all of them. But there are specific plants that have specific needs, and I address those differently. So for example, Frank gets watered differently to the rest of my plants. My bird of paradise gets watered differently because it likes to be moist all the time, but it doesn't like to be wet. So that's very fiddly, because what's the difference between moist and wet? Do you know what I mean? But it likes to be very moist. So almost wet, but not wet. So I have to keep an eye on him a bit more. This one, as soon as you allow it to dry out, or if you allow it to dry out too much, it really struggles to recover. You get the yellowing, you get the drooping. It can just be a mess. So I have to keep an eye on him, or her, sorry. But then at the same time, if you overwater it, it gets root rot really easily. So yeah, all my plants have a different schedule. You just have to meet each plant's individual needs. But yeah, another question, just to end everything off, I still get questions on like pests, and yeah, like I said, I've been lucky enough that I haven't really had to deal with any pests. You can use neem oil. You can order neem oil and use neem oil, mix it with a bit of warm water to emulsify and spray your plants down. This will help you to avoid pests, and it will kill existing pests that you might have. Because I haven't personally been suffering from pests, there is something that I do something that I do tend to do, which helps to avoid me getting pests, which is peppermint essential oil. So really high quality peppermint essential oil. I put a few drops. So let's say my mixture would be, okay, let's say 85% will be water, 5% will be essential oil, and then the last 10% will be hydrogen peroxide. and I'll mix that in a spray bottle, and I will spray all of my plants, and I will also spray the top part of the soil. This helps to deter any bugs, any creepy crawlies, any eggs that might have been laid, and it also revitalizes, like it gives your plants like a boost of oxygen from the hydrogen peroxide, which they tend to really love. So I like to do that maybe once a month if I remember. I'm not going to pretend, but that is something that I do to ensure that my plants are doing great. So yeah, hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you do have any additional questions for me, please leave them below and I'll get to those individually. If you have video requests, so like specific care for specific plants that you might have seen in my video that you're either interested in or already have, if you want an in-depth video on those plants, do let me know. I am more than happy to share. I really advocate having plants in your home. They just bring you so much fulfillment. There's something really beautiful about taking care of something and then kind of seeing the fruits of your labor. Not to mention they purify your air. I always say that my bedroom is like, the air here is so good, like it's good quality. I should be charging people, okay? Like it's banging. And there's just, for me, nothing better than opening my eyes and just seeing my plants everywhere in my room. So yeah, bring some greenery into your home, bring the outdoors inside. It's a beautiful thing, it's magical, it just sets your energy right, you know? It gets your spirit in a right place. So yeah, I'll catch you guys in my next video. Bye!